Hello, I'm Andrew Fox, author of award-winning comic horror novel Fat White Vampire Blues, and its sequel, Bride of the Fat White Vampire. I also wrote a science fiction novel, The Good Humor Man, or Calorie 3501, that Booklist magazine selected as one of the best science fiction novels of 2009. Why am I wrapped in yellow caution tape? Well, I'll get around to that in just a bit. First, I want to tell you about a new anthology of original science fiction stories I'm trying to raise money for on FreedomFi. It's called Hazardous Imaginings, the Mondo book of politically incorrect science fiction. A half-century ago, the new wave group of young science fiction writers set out to steer science fiction in a new, edgy direction. Before then, American science fiction, with some exceptions, had been a somewhat conservative genre of fiction. Aimed at an audience of teenagers, it had mostly stayed away from depictions or considerations of sex, the counterculture, and drug use. But then, all the taboos were pushed aside. Suddenly, science fiction could talk about incest, homosexuality, bisexuality, women's liberation, sadism, blasphemies against traditional religious beliefs, the moral limitations of capitalism, and the pervasiveness of bigotry in American society. Now, none of these subjects are taboo anymore. Well, pretty much the opposite. They've become pervasive in the arts and popular culture, part of our shared mental furniture. Things that were once shunned are now celebrated, and those who continue to express their disapproval are often castigated as bigots. However, at some point in the last half-century, a new conservatism overtook the arts, popular culture, and most universities. Former young radicals are now the gatekeepers, gray-headed guardians of today's social consensus. A new generation of young people has embraced the idea that speech is violence, that they have somehow a right to not be offended, and that opposing viewpoints are morally evil and must be shouted down. What does this mean for science fiction? Well, science fiction is often called speculative fiction. Speculation and extrapolation, asking what if and why or how, is the genre's life's blood. Science fiction writers can't wrap themselves in yellow caution tape. If they do, the field dies of self-strangulation and conformity. Science fiction writers need to be free to follow their what-ifs, wherever those speculative rabbit holes may lead, even if they lead to unpleasant places. That's why I'm raising funds for Hazardous Imaginings, the Mondo book of politically incorrect science fiction. This anthology will pose questions that need to be asked. What are today's taboos? What kinds of science fiction stories are verboten in today's commercial publishing market? What just won't fly, whether due to editors' aversions, editors' assumptions about readers' aversions, or the economic pressures of corporate publishing? And how can today's taboos be illuminated utilizing the unique cognitive tools of science fiction? I'm aiming to raise $4,000 so that I can offer contributors a professional word rate and pay for production costs and use of the FreedomFi platform. I'll be looking for stories of high literary merit from both experienced science fiction writers and talented newcomers. I won't consider any troll submissions, stories meant only to provoke, defame, shock, or insult. The more outrageous or disturbing the material, the more incisively it needs to be explored using the cognitive tools of science fiction. Provoke? Yes. But also strive to make readers care about your characters and what happens to them. Aim to leave readers with something to think about, not merely something to be repulsed by. Science fiction should always make room for contrarians, for heretics, for the unfashionable and unpopular, for dreamers at the fringe. Without them, the centuries-long conversation at the heart of science fiction becomes a sterile echo chamber. In this era of accelerating technological and social change, we need a daring and courageous science fiction, more than ever. A science fiction absent of self-censorship. So, let's rid ourselves of that yellow caution tape. Hand me those scissors, please. Ah, that's better. It's time for Hazardous Imaginings. Thank you.